Party conference. I'm not going to lie, it's all kicking off in Liverpool tomorrow. We've already heard Keir Starmer arrive. Benedict, is this another reset? I mean, it's not going to be easy for him, is it?
It's not going to be easy for him, and I think he would do very well to stop framing things through the prism of resets, because all you do when you do that is just draw attention to the fact that the previous period has not gone particularly well. I think if he tried to stop sort of approaching things with a clean slatest attitude, actually he might be able to make some tangible progress and people might feel that there was progress being made. There is obviously a great deal of unhappiness, though, with how he is running his government, and I think that there's some justification for that, frankly, given the fact that he keeps on needing to make these resets, and the fact that he's losing so many ministers isn't great. Obviously, Gaza is a particularly thorny issue for him. I don't think that that's going to be resolved, is the thing. It almost doesn't matter, having said that he'll recognise the state of Palestine, even if he were to turn around and say that he thinks that there's a genocide going on. I don't actually think that would be enough for a lot of the Labour membership, who either, on the one hand, may not agree with him, or on the other hand, will think he's simply taken far too long to get to that position. There is simply that much anger among the backbenchers and among the membership. The key thing, though, is right now, is there actually a possible alternative to him? Is there an alternative route to removing him? For the time being, I think he is safe, simply because there isn't the mechanism to defenestrate him, which isn't great, if we're honest.
OK, Aisha, let's come to you. I mean, you are a Labour Party activist. Would you say your party are doing well?
Honestly, Dawn, I can't say that. I can't wholeheartedly put my hand on my heart and say, yes, we're doing amazingly well. I think what's going to be interesting is, obviously, we've had this big announcement on ID cards, which has really upset a lot of people. And it's quite frustrating for people like myself who are, we've in the past door knocked, we've done all the legwork, the grassroots kind of work for the party. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how things are going to progress. Obviously, we've got the conference now and so on. But I do feel that we are still in a better place in terms of some of the things we've put into place, like, for example, Shabana Mahmood now, and the one in, one out policy, and the migrants as well. And as long as we continue to find a viable solution to deal with the migrants, the boats coming in as well, that's another big issue which a lot of voters are really frustrated with. So yeah, I think we've got a couple of years now, between 2.5 and 3.5 years before the next potential general election can be called legally. So I think it's a long time and anything could happen. So yeah, let's see what's going to happen.
Aisha, do you seriously think the one in, one out policy is actually working? It seems to be. I think we're up to 4, possibly 5 out, and I think it's probably close to 1,600 in at the moment. And we've just heard, obviously, tragically, that 3 people have lost their lives making that journey. It doesn't seem hugely successful.
No, of course. I mean, obviously, the figures don't look that exciting right now. But again, it's a step in the right direction. And there are more sort of policies that hopefully will be announced in the coming months as well to deal with this. It's not a case of let's just ship them out. We also need to tackle the sort of people, the mechanisms that are in place that are allowing these huge numbers of people coming in. And the winter period is always a quieter time because of the weather and so on, and the crossings always lessen. And the summer period always shows a massive spike because obviously people are trying to get across before it becomes the weather changes.
Right.
So no, I mean, everybody's frustrated on. I'm one of the people as well. We want to see proper strategies, and I've always argued that until we have a different system in place with more legal routes, we're still going to see these horrific crossings, these human trafficking gangs exploiting people that want to escape wherever they're escaping from.
OK, let's come back to you, Benedict. I mean, the latest poll, and it's a big poll as well, if an election took place now, Nigel Farage would get the keys to number 10. This poll says that immigration and the cost of living crisis are the 2 things people are really worrying about. Obviously, the immigration crisis is going to be sorted out by the digital ID cards, isn't it?
I mean, digital ID cards is simply something that Tony Blair and many members of the Labour right have been banging on for a very long time about, and it seems, I think, that they're almost throwing it out just to be seen to be trying to be doing something. You know, this is something, therefore we must do it. But the funny thing is, actually, ID cards were slightly more popular than unpopular until about 48 hours ago, at which point Sir Keir Starmer announced that he was going to release them, at which point they stopped being popular and became unpopular. And I think that demonstrates the problem that Labour has. They can come up with good ideas, potentially, but the leadership itself is seen now, sadly, to be incompetent because they've had a bad start. And, you know, we've also got to be honest here, there are other issues as well at play. It's not just illegal immigration, it's actually legal migration. I know Labour want to frame it very much as illegal migration, but we've actually skipped that part of the conversation. That's partly why reform is doing so well, because people are going, and another thing, I actually think too many people are coming here legally. And then, of course, we've got the other thing, which is the budget coming up. You mentioned it as well, the cost of living. That's going to hit even more people in the pocket. And it just seems to be a bit of a death spiral for Labour. It's one thing after another, where even when they start to make some progress on things like, for example, NHS waiting times, which have gone down, something catastrophic happens somewhere else that draws everyone's attention away from it. And therein, I think, lies the problem. It's a government that, for all it may be well-intentioned, and people can argue about that till the cows come home, it simply doesn't appear to be in control of the process, and it certainly isn't in control of the message. And right now, Nigel Farage simply has to sit there and go, do you see that disaster that's just happened? I'm not going to do that. And people go, fantastic, I'll vote for you.
OK, Aisha, is Keir Starmer the problem? And would either of the mayors that are vying for that job, Sadiq Khan in London, Andy Burnham in Manchester, do you think they'd do a better job?
Honestly, I can't say whether Sadiq or Andy would do a better job. But Benedict has pointed out something which is quite sort of difficult to stomach, but it is something that I feel is the case. The popularity of Keir, he's just not connecting with the voters the way he did when we were campaigning last summer, when we were talking to people. And even in the first couple of weeks and months of his leadership, there was a lot of positivity and so on. But I do feel that as time has gone on, and obviously we've had a number of resets and U-turns and so on, it has affected his popularity. And again, the stance on Gaza, which Dawn, you mentioned, which obviously came up right at the beginning of this discussion, the dithering, the sitting on the fence and not condemning the behaviour, the actions of Israel early enough. And that's really upset a lot of the backbenchers and a lot of the grassroots people, activists on the ground, who are seeing in real time what is happening, babies being starved, people being bombed while they're queuing up for aid, just buildings being obliterated and so on. And this is really impacting. And I think, and a lot of the discussions that I have with friends and other Labour members as well, is that there seems to be a circle of people around Keir Starmer that aren't allowing the real messages from people who are actually upset to get through to him. So by the time he gets the message, it's kind of almost a bit too late because he's upset more people. So I think it's going to be interesting as long as he starts to listen. I mean, this is again frustrating for all of us, but we still have faith in the party. We still have faith in Keir Starmer right now. Again, we'll see what happens.
OK, interesting to say Keir Starmer right now. I mean, you could just say, you alluded to our Morgan McSweeney there, which is one of the latest scandals to hit Keir Starmer. I think we've had one a month so far in the 14 months with various resignations and people sort of like, doing very interesting things that they maybe shouldn't be doing. Benedict, David Lammy has put money, or said he would put money if he was a betting man, on Labour being in power for a record number of years. Meanwhile, just 1% of working class people say they have any faith in this Labour Party.
Did he say how much money he was prepared to put on it?
No, he didn't. He did qualify by saying if it's a betting man, which quite clearly it doesn't sound like he is.
I was going to say, any amount of money that you put on by the time of the next election will be worth significantly less due to inflation. So I think that's a bit of a cheeky thing to be doing anyway. I think what's very clear, though, I mean, taking aside David Lammy's assertions, his boisterousness about their prospects, I think it's just very clear that you can't say that Labour is now the party of the working man. It may believe that it still has the same ideology, but I think possibly the working man has moved in a different direction, well, and working woman, of course. But I think that community has moved in a different direction, and the party has moved in the opposite direction at the same time. Reform are, I think, that party now, and that might be a very difficult pill for Labour, for a lot of Labour activists to swallow. But I think you have to look at that, and you have to ask yourself, is Labour the party of the managerial class, which is ironic? I think a lot of people would interpret it as being, ultimately, whatever it is that you think reform is, their vote comes from a sense of disenfranchisement and of not being listened to. And be it immigration, be it taxes, be it infrastructure, be it defense, doesn't matter what it is, they simply feel that they are taken for granted by a political and media class that considers themselves better than those people. That's just fundamentally incredibly poor politics. And to be fair, the Conservatives are just as guilty of it as Labour are, but Labour fundamentally rely on that core to be electorally viable. They won the last general election because reform weren't quite yet the force that they are now. They did it on a sort of a technicality. They cannot rely on any of that vote at the next general election, no matter how far away that may be.
Aisha, final word to you. I don't know if you're going to the Labour Party conference this weekend, but if you could march up to Keir Starmer and say one thing straight into his face, what would you say?
Listen to us. Honestly, I'd say listen to not just Labour activists, but the rest of us as well, the rest of the British population as well. And Benedict, can I just say, we didn't win on a technicality. We won because the population wanted change. And what we're seeing now with reform, potentially reform voters, is exactly the same sentiment, exactly the same feelings, where we're not being heard and so on. And a lot of the reform voters are Conservative voters who have decided Conservatives are not in any position to win another election. So let's move over and see what reform have to offer. So I think that's quite interesting because and we may well see a partnership between reform and the Conservatives come the next general election. We don't know. And a lot of the voters that left Labour to vote for Boris Johnson's government in 2019, again, they were disenfranchised, they were frustrated and so on. But then they came back and voted for Labour again. So it's quite, there's no way of predicting what's going to happen in the next couple of years, even in the next couple of months. We have no idea what's going to happen, and that's quite worrying as well, I think, and for some people.
David Lammy, I mean, next couple of days, to be honest with you. Thank you very much, Benedict Spence and Aisha Ali Khan there. Interesting. And let me know what you think about what you've just heard there.